Hello everyone and welcome to another exciting match from the Julius Baer Generation Cup, even though it's called the Generation Cup since younger players are facing the older generation, mostly the younger players have went into the knockout phase of the tournament. The older gentlemen did not qualify, but what are you going to do? Here we have two spectacular young players, Praggnanandhaa and Vincent Keymer, and we are going to show Game 4 of their match. Game 1 ended by Vincent taking the lead. I will just show you a part of the game where Vincent had the white pieces. Maybe this would be okay. Let's say this is the position, and Vincent pushed h5 here. And now it's a very short combination. G captures on h5, G captures on h5, and now Pragg has to be very careful as Pragg is playing. The black pieces in this game. He has to play rook b8, for example, and or let's say try and trade off this rook, or maybe he should have done it even before that. But here Pragg plays a rook a captures, rook 1 captures on a3, and now he just gives Vincent the attack. Captures h6, sorry about that. And there is no going back from this now, as well, all of the pieces attacking the black king are just too powerful. The game followed with rook captures on c3. Vincent, or rather Pragg attacked Vincent's queen, and Vincent just played h7 check, king h8, and now if there was no f7 pawn, knight to g6 would be checkmate, so of course just knight captures on f7. And there is no good continuation here. You can give up the queen, which is not all that great. Knight captures with check, knight captures, queen captures on c3, so that obviously doesn't work. So after this knight captures on f7 check, we have knight captures on f7, but now, of course, knight to g6 is checkmate. So that's how Vincent took the lead. In the second game, Pragg had the white pieces, and he tried a nice d4. It was a nice queen's gambit game, but Vincent very easily equalized, and there wasn't all that much in that game. Pragg tried to push for the win. He did have a 2-1 advantage. It was a rook endgame. He had 2 pawns. Vincent had 1, but he showed that he can very easily hold this. Game 3 ended in a draw as well, and this is now game 4, the one where Pragg has to win on demand if he wants the forced tiebreak. So let's see what happened. Pragg has the white pieces, and he opens with knight to f3. He now goes for the Reti opening. We have d5 by Vincent, d5 by Vincent, and now g3, going for the King's Indian attack. c5, we have bishop to g2 and knight to f6. So played in a very principled manner. If white does not push pawns, if white wants to control center with his pieces, of course you will take advantage of that and claim the center with your pawns. So here we have castles, e6, and now pawn to c4. And now knight to c6 is more common here, but Vincent continues with pawn to d4. We have e3 challenging the central structure, knight to c6, and e captures on d4. C captures d3, and bishop to c5. Nicely continuing development, bishop to g5 by Pragg, and h6, forcing Pragg to decide what to do with the bishop. Do you go back, or do you capture on f6? Capturing on f6 is the way to go. Queen captures, or rather G captures, as was played in the game. And now there is one game in the database between Dmitry Yakovenko and Pavel Elyanov from the FIDE World Cup 2015 in Baku, Azerbaijan, where knight b to d2 was played. But here we have knight to a3 by Pragg, and it is now, as of move 11, that we have a completely new game. So the idea is that, okay, of course, black can capture, black can mess up your pawn structure here, but if Vincent does this, then he gave up the bishop pair, and let's say after castles, Pragg will put a rook on b1, and it's a very nice position. You have the semi-open file for your rook. If b6, then the bishop truly comes alive, so yeah, you don't really care about your doubled a pawn. So okay, of course, Vincent knows this. He just castles to safety, and even though the king side is ruined a bit, Pragg does not have a dark square bishop. He already fianchettoed his light square bishop. So there is no good way to actually create something here. Okay, the knight can move, the queen can get to h5, but more than that you really don't have. So here, rook to b1. Of course, b4 is the idea at some point. We have king g7 by Vincent, adding more protection to the pawns here. And queen to d2 now. We have queen to d6, and now knight to c2. Now, getting ready to push that b pawn. So, of course, pawn to a5. And now, after a3, again preparing b4, Vincent just stops this with pawn to a4. Now, b4, of course, will be met with a captures on b3 en passant. So here, queen to e2, and now pawn to f5. We have knight to d2, again adding more firepower to this b3 square and preparing b4. If you don't push b4, you're just going to be struggling for the rest of the game. So bishop to d7 and pawn to b4 finally. A captures on b3, en passant, knight captures on b3, now attacking the bishop, and Vincent just plays a pawn to b6. You could also capture on a3, but that will weaken your d4 pawn a bit too much. So here, just a nice b6. Vincent just needs a draw here to beat Pragg in the match and to proceed to the semifinals. Knight captures on c5, b captures, and now rook to b5. Now Pragg wants to double up on the b file, and he does have the passed a pawn. The knight is defending it, so if you can trade off everything, then maybe you can push that a pawn to victory. But Vincent has a very, very strong center, and of course he will start pushing pawns. Pawn to e5, and now it's a question whether or not Vincent can prepare e4. If he can, it's going to be very hard for Pragg to defend this. So rook f to b1. For the moment, he has sufficient control over the e4 square, and rook 8 to b8. Now Vincent wants to trade off all of the rooks of the board. We have knight to e1, preparing knight to f3, and now rook f to e8. Again, at some point, e4 would be very nice. So queen to c2, getting the queen away from the e file, but also still keeping an eye on that e4 square. And now knight to a7. A very nice move by Vincent, as it forces Pragg to trade off the rooks. So rook captures, and rook captures on b8. We have queen captures and knight to f3. So okay, Vincent still with a very strong center. His king is a bit weak, so if Pragg can somehow get that queen to h5, maybe knight to h4 to f5, maybe the bishop can come into the game. Attacks might happen, but he has to play very, very precise move. So knight to c8 by Vincent. He wants to play knight d6, maybe put more pressure on that e4 square. And the h3 now. We have pawn to f6, adding more protection to the e5 pawn. Now the queen might also be activated, as if the queen ever wants to reach h5, you're going to have to play some like queen to d1, queen to e2, and then the black queen will have access to some nice squares along the b file. So here knight to h4, clearing the path for the white queen, queen e2, queen h5, queen to g6, that would be the dream, and knight to d6 now. We have bishop to d5 by Pragg, and now we have queen to b6 by Vincent, queen to d1, and now queen to b2. Like we mentioned, if the queen ever moves, the black queen will gain some squares here, and now Pragg plays pawn to a4, and this is definitely the correct way to go. You really want to start pushing that passed pawn. If you just rush it with queen to h5, Vincent's idea was, of course, queen c1 check, and once the king moves, queen g5, and you're offering a queen trade, you're defending the g6 square, so nothing really happening here, and the knight here nicely covers f7, so even queen to f7 is not possible. So beautiful setup here by Vincent. So, of course, Pragg plays a4. This is the absolute best move, and now Vincent says, all right, no more waiting, I have to strike in the center, pawn to e4. And now, how do you continue? Well, Pragg decided to go queen to h5. Of course, it makes sense. You are preparing queen g6. So now queen to c1 check has to be played. If Vincent doesn't go for this maneuver, it's game over. Queen to g2 and queen to g5, forcing a queen trade. And now, not forcing, offering a queen trade, but queen back to d1. Here, Vincent has to continue the attack. He plays f4. And now Pragg is still better, but he has to continue pushing the passed pawn. But it's very hard. I mean, look at this beautiful center. Look at the queen. Look at the bishop here. The knight ready to jump into the game. It it takes a very cool-headed moment just to push that pawn on a5, and it would be good for Pragg. But here he played d captures on e4, and now he allows Vincent to make the attack happen a little bit faster, as the pawn is on a4 instead of a5. So f captures on g3, f captures on g3, and now queen to e3. Now, if, let's say, d3, d2 can be played, Vincent's pawn is also very, very close to promotion. And now, how can Pragg play this? Well, here he played queen to c2, and this simply will not do. Here, what you have to play is queen to h5, if you are ever to achieve more than a draw here. Point is that now, after, let's say, queen d2 check, king moves, and queen to g5, That would be very good for Pragg, because now after queen g5 you have knight to f5 check, and if bishop captures on f5 you can trade. Let's say f captures, e captures on f5, and after knight captures your pawn can now go to a5. It would be better if the pawn was already on a5, so now it would go to a6, but you know, let's say knight to d6, a6, and now knight to c8 guards the a7 square. It's hard to say if you will be able to win this. So what you could do after queen to h5 and queen to d2 check, king to h1, is maybe you don't go queen to g5. Also possible is just to continue checking. Queen to c1 check, and now you say, okay, how are you escaping perpetual? King to h2, queen to c2 check. Okay, you have to play knight to g2 if you are to escape the perpetual, but now bishop to e8 can be played, for example, and after, let's say, queen g4 check, bishop to g6, you can now play e5 here. Very nice move, opening up some files in front of the black king. Also, the queen has access to d7 check. This would put pressure on the knight, so it's hard to say. For example, f captures. Now you push a5, and who is faster? d3, a6, d2. Now you're going to play queen e6, threaten queen to g8 check. Now if d1 queen, you will win the game. The black king will not escape all the checks, but knight f7 stops this, and now let's say a7, d1 queen, and a8 queen. There are now 4 queens on the board, so it was you know, there was a possibility for this happening, but it's you know, quite a wild game. It's hard to say. Pragg, of course, is better, but with 4 queens on the board, who's to say what would happen? However, Pragg played queen to c2, and now Vincent completely takes over the game, because now d3 comes with tempo, and the black's position is just unstoppable. Pragg played queen to f2, but now the spectacular bishop captures on h3. Of course, the bishop cannot be captured as queen captures on f2 is happening. King to g1, and now queen to c1 with check, forcing the king to come to h2. And now after king to h2, there is only one move that wins the game for Vincent, but even a draw is fine. However, feel free to pause the video here and win the game for Vincent while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this unstoppable idea. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is queen to c2. That's the good stuff. So congratulations to everyone who found this. There is no escaping now, well, you're threatening to win the queen, and once, let's say, king to g2 is played, which was played in the game, Vincent just played d2, and he was in this position on move 42 that Praggnanandhaa resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Whatever you do, d1 brings another queen into the game, and there's just nothing you can do. The f5 square is covered too many times. There's no way for the queen to reach g6 in time, as d1 comes with checks. So I mean, there's no playing this. And even if you play king captures on h3, queen captures on f2, of course the queen is hanging. There's absolutely nothing you can do. So after d2, Vincent wins, and Pragg is now out of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. And what does this mean for the pairings? Well, let's check it out. These are the knockout brackets as presented on Twitter by the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. You can see that Magnus eliminated Levon, and Vincent eliminated Praggnanandhaa, so Magnus will be facing Vincent Keymer in the semifinals, which is of course very exciting. Hans Niemann lost to Liam Le. Liam Le won the first game, then Hans retaliated in the second game. Third game ended in a draw, and fourth game was won by Le. So very nicely done. And the battle between Arjun Erigaisi and Christopher Yu was truly an epic one. It had to go into tie breaks, and in the end Arjun was standing victorious, but it was an incredible battle. So Magnus versus Vincent and Liam Le versus Arjun Erigaisi will be the semifinals, and we'll see who emerges victorious and ends up in the finals. But one thing we don't have to worry about is Magnus facing Hans in the finals, so we definitely know that the final match will happen. That's the game and the match. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Very nicely played by both of them. Pragg played some incredible chess in this event, but Vincent, as the newest member of the 2700 club, shows once again why he is the newest member of the 2700 club, so very well deserved. I would like to thank Guia Parala, Paz Interior, Stuart Matthews, Derek King, Brian Puckin, and Golden Pawn for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Julius Baer Generation Cup knockouts until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.